my thought process was, I want to rip off the Band-Aid. I already feel awful right now. Like, I feel like my whole life has changed. I feel like there's someone out there that I should have known that I never got to know yet.
Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I'm your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for not parent expected or non-paternal event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. And welcome to episode 58. I wanted to spend a minute at the beginning to talk about an article that was released this week on Severance magazine. It is a Q&A they did with me about my podcast. Let me pull up the link here. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's called Severance magazine. I'm going to put it in a link for that in the episode description. But this is an online magazine, and I'm also wondering if it's called Severance magazine. No, that wouldn't be the way to pronounce it. I'm not certain. This is a magazine. Let me pull up their mission statement. That it's for us. It's for people with DNA surprises and family secrets, NPEs, donor conceived, adoptees. They have, let me pull up the About Us. About Severance. This was a magazine founded by B.K. Jackson. She herself had a DNA surprise. She says, Severance is a magazine and community for people who've been separated from biological family. It's for anyone who's fallen out of the family tree and made a hard landing, who's learned they're not quite who they thought they were. And I adore B.K. Jackson. You can find her and her magazine online. She also has a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and I'll make sure and put those resources on the episode description. When I first found out I was an NPE, one of the best articles I've ever read that I really identified with was on Severance magazine, and it was called After a DNA Surprise, 10 Things No One Wants to Hear. And it has 10 things no one wants to hear. Things like, oh, your dad's still going to be your dad. And what's another one people say? Don't air your dirty laundry. All those things that we all hear and hate or cringe. We do hear these things. They are common. We identify with them. So thank you to Severance magazine and to B.K. Jackson for writing so eloquently about this topic. And I have an NPE who's willing to share her story as well today. And today I am speaking with Diane. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
Thank you, Diane, so much for being willing to share your story today.
Yeah, no problem.
I received an email from you months ago, and all you said was, I'm ready to tell my story.
It's kind of a long one, so bear with me.
I will. I appreciate you doing this today. You know the format, and I believe you're local to me. Did you call me from a Minnesota number?
Yeah, I'm like probably 2-ish hours south of you.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I'm in Minnesota, but kind of just barely by the Iowa border.
By the Iowa border. Got it. Okay. So go ahead and give us your background. Start at the beginning. Tell us, when you were born and about your family of origin, and take it from there.
Okay. So I was born in 1983. My original family consisted of me, my mom, and my dad. And then 2 years after I was born, they had my brothers. My brothers were twins, but they were premature. So one of them passed away. So I had just like at birth, basically. So I had just one brother that I kind of had growing up. They they both kind of worked jobs, but we didn't have per se a lot of money. Like we started out in a trailer park and um, moved up from there. My parents actually got divorced when I was 5, and and then so it was just me, my mom, and my brother. We saw my dad, the typical schedule, every other weekend. When when he first moved away from us, um, he kind of lived with my grandma, so, his mom. So he would work a lot on the weekends. So even though it was his weekend to see us, we didn't necessarily see him the whole time. We spent a lot of time with my grandma. And then when I was about 7, my dad remarried, and we still went to his house kind of every other weekend, but then he would be out working in the garage, and so we'd spend a lot of time with my stepmom. Um, so I really didn't have a super close relationship with my dad. It was kind of like he claimed me as his kid, and paid child support and whatnot, but really didn't like spend a lot of quality time together. And then when I was 13 and my little brother was about 10 or 11, he decided that he wanted to go live with my dad and my stepmom. So then it was just me and my mom. So my brother moved in with my dad and my stepmom. They then had one child of their own when I was 10. That's like a little backwards, but they had one child of their own when I was 10. So I grew up having a half sister on my dad's side. So their family was them 4, and then I was with my mom, and I would still go visit occasionally, but like there was always something. I still wasn't really close with my dad, and he kind of made me do the work a lot of the time, whereas your parents should want to call you and talk to you and spend time with you occasionally. You shouldn't have to seek them out,
Mhm.
you know? I mean,
Yeah.
that was kind of my thought. But so once my brother moved in there, it was really different. I always was really very independent. Um, and my mom, she kind of, sometimes did her own thing and kind of had, friends, and she would spend time with friends, and there was some marijuana involved. And so it's kind of like once I got to probably age 11, 12, 13, she decided I was pretty independent and she was gone all the time. And so then not spending that much time with my dad, I I, I sort of raised myself almost in a way, because once I became a teenager, at some point, I just wanted to spend more time with my friends. So I didn't go out of my way to always make my visits over at my dad's house. And no one did anything about that, I guess.
Mhm.
um, it wasn't necessarily easy to want to go there all the time. I also didn't have the greatest relationship with my stepmom. She would, she would say things like she would introduce us to people, and she would say, "This is my son and my daughter and my stepdaughter." So my brother was her son, but I was her stepdaughter because I didn't choose to live there, because she didn't like my mom, or because I have no idea why,
Mhm.
That's just the way it was. And they would go on family vacations to like Wisconsin Dells and not even invite me.
Oh,
And I was a teenager. I wasn't like grown up or 18 or on my own yet. They would take family pictures without me. It seemed like I wasn't always informed on what was going on at their house. It was a little bit of a disconnect. So I never quite felt like I fit with their family. And I guess there was a reason for that.
hmm.
um, so, uh, okay. So then, I was really close with my grandma, my dad's mom, because of the time that we spent with her, a lot. So, sometimes if my stepmom treated me unfairly, it was almost like my grandma tried to compensate. We had more of a mother-daughter relationship than a grandmother-granddaughter relationship,
Hmm.
I would say. My stepmom once specifically told me to my face that when they pass away, that this is how things would be divided, she said. And she said that my brother would get all of my dad's things, and my sister would get all of her things, including her house, and I would get $100.
Oh my gosh.
Why do you tell a kid that? I mean,
Oh,
and
terrible.
yeah. And then so, she's been my stepmom since I was 7. So from age 7 to about 13, every year it was tradition that on Christmas Eve we would go to her family's house to celebrate Christmas, because that was the night that they did it. So it was my step family, my extended step family. And when I was about 13, she told me that her family didn't have enough money to buy people extra presents, so that I wasn't allowed to come anymore. And I just remember like looking at her crying and saying, I don't need any presents. I just want to go, because I just wanted to be included. Because how do you do that? So that's kind of how it was there. So that's a big reason why I never went out of my way to spend extra time with them.
Oh,
And my dad really didn't do anything about it. Like he wasn't cruel. He just wasn't. He just wasn't
hmm.
anything. He just let things be however they were. So
Hmm.
um so when I was about 19, I was kind of over my mom's shenanigans and her not really being there anyway. So I had been working since I was 15. So when I was 19, I finally decided it was time to move out. So I got an apartment with some friends, like roommates, so we could make ends meet, basically. Um, I met my husband when I was 21. Um, we had kids. I went to college when I was 30, because I didn't really have the means to do it when I was 18, because I didn't really have a lot of parent support. Um, so I decided when, I was pregnant with my third child and had a mortgage, that's a great time to go to college. So that's what I did.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and that was only 7 years ago. So, but I always was kind of the family historian, and had a passion for genealogy, and that actually stemmed from my dad's mom, my grandma. She was always very much like that. Like, she had family trees, and she had old newspaper articles and old obituaries and old photos and all that family history stuff. And since I spent so much time with her, like, that really became a passion of mine as well. So at the time of taking an ancestry test, I already had a family tree on Ancestry for probably, I don't know, 10 years, I'm guessing. And I had like 1,500 people in it. I mean, I had done all kinds of research. This is just something I like to do. And I was interested in the DNA test a few years ago because I thought, just how cool would that be? Like that's so fun because it's just part of my neat hobby that I like, and we never, like, we do pretty well with money and we've, done pretty well for ourselves. But I never felt like we had just like the extra money to just blow on that because it seemed just like an extravagant expense, not something we really needed to do. Um, so we came into a little bit of extra money, and I was like, "Oh, they're on sale for $59," and this was November of 2019, so this was just a year ago. And I was like, "Oh, cool," So I even got one for my husband too, just for fun, like everyone does it for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got them, and like I thought it was really cool, but I wasn't like so jazzed up about it. You get busy with life and with kids, so it kind of sat on his dresser for a couple months till January. And then I was like, oh shoot, we better do these, because I don't know if they expire or anything, if they go bad or anything like that. So I was like, all right, we better do these. I don't want to waste the $59. So we finally did them, and sent them off in January of this year, so of 2020.
Mm.
Um, I got my results in February. I started like kind of like I knew the DNA matches was a thing, and I'm super interested in this. So I didn't do what a lot of people do, which is like look at their uh, ethnicity and then skip everything else. I mean, I looked at everything right away, and I kind of have a researcher brain. Like I'm an accountant, so I really like to dig into things anyway. But so I started on the first day I got my results. I start looking at my matches, and my highest match said it was a first cousin, and it was a name I didn't know. And I'm like, okay, well that's weird, but I kind of chalked it off to, well, like maybe someone had a baby and put it up for adoption. I don't know what happened. So my second cousin I didn't recognize, and I'm like, well, that's pretty logical. You don't always know all of your second cousins. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
depending how close your family is. And so I just like I kept scrolling down, and I saw a few from my mom's side, and I'm like, "Oh, look at him. I know him," and saw some names that I recognized, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll look at this more later." And I just kind of put it down. And then I got a message, and the message was from this first cousin name that I didn't know. And he said, "Hey, listen, so I was adopted and I was wondering if you could help me find my family." And this wasn't out of the ordinary to me because I already had kind of had a weird thought that, oh, maybe this person's adopted. I don't know their name.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it didn't seem extra strange. And because I love helping people and I really have the bug for genealogy. So I was like, "Oh, sure, this will be fun." It was like I can solve a puzzle. I can do detective work and I had kind of already figured out how ancestry worked, and I had already looked at like the centimorgans and the relationships and things like that. And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I can try to help you with that." I said, "Yes, right away." And so I started um looking at I started looking at the matches we had in common, me and this mystery cousin. And um, right away, what stood out to me is I saw one match that we had in common uh, was a second cousin that I have on my mom's side. So I was like, oh, awesome. We must be related on my mom's side, you know,
Mm-hmm.
first thought. Because you match so and so, and I know him in real life. And so I'm looking, so I'm like, okay, so I just need to go to my tree and I need to just build branches further out on my mom's side and I'll figure this out, because it's a pretty high match. So he's got to be somewhat close to me, I wouldn't have to build up like 7 generations or anything. And so I start looking and start building out matches, and I'm just not finding anything that works. And I'm like, okay, well, this is not working. Like, I'd spent several days on this because I want to solve the puzzle. I want to figure out the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent several days on it and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I was like, oh, well, so my cousin, the name that I know on there that we match to, um, we'll call him Adam. And so I was like, what if I call Adam and ask him, what it looks like from his side? Like how many CMs does he share with mystery cousin, and so on and so forth. I said, maybe that'll help me. So I called Adam and I'm talking with him and I was like, hey, listen, I wonder if you could share your tree with me. Because remember, this is a cousin I know in real life. So he's actually my mom's cousin. So I know him and I know how we're related and everything. So I was like, hey, yeah, I said, so will you share your list of matches that you have in common with him? And so he did. And I didn't get time to look at the email right away. And as I'm looking more and more, I figured out that if you have one or both of your parents test, it will sort your matches for you. So it'll tell you mother's side or father's side. So, um, so I was like, oh, that'll be even more helpful, and I hadn't even looked at his list of matches he sent me yet. And so I got a hold of my mom because the tests were still on sale. And I was like, hey, mom, I have this cool mystery I'm trying to solve. I have this cousin that reached out to me and I don't know how we're related and I'm trying to figure it out. And it's like a cool mystery. And I was like, I wonder if I buy you a test, are you willing to test so that I can sort my matches and it'll make it easier for me to help this guy? And she was like, oh, yeah, sure, that's fine. You know, I said, okay, cool. So I bought my mom the test. I still hadn't looked at the email from the other cousin or put much thought into it. And so we got my mom's test and she took it and we sent it back. And I'm still like building things out. And I kind of vaguely I finally looked at the email from Adam to see um, what matches he had in common, but I didn't really I didn't closely compare them to mine yet. I was just trying to see if there was any I recognized, so I just kind of skimmed it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know who these people are. So then we're waiting for my mom's results to come in. And I'm looking at my matches list some more, and I see the second cousin match named Sarah. And I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I don't know how we're related. Would you mind sharing your tree with me so I can see the names of living people in order to help me figure out how to research it, to figure out how we're related? And she's like, oh, yeah, sure. She's just in her 20s and she just was a really sweet girl. And I found her on Facebook and everything. And she's like, yeah, no problem. Just right away was willing to share her tree, which was super helpful. So she was also in common with mystery cousin. So I have this cousin that I verified is on my mom's side that is in common with him. And then I have her. I don't know how I'm related to her, but she's in common with him as well. So I took her tree because she's my second match. And I think I don't know if they call it a mirror tree, but I took her tree and made my own version of it. And then I I took our other matches in common, mine and Sarah's, and I tried to figure out how they related to her. And so I'm like, if I figure out how they relate to her, maybe that'll help me figure out maybe how they might relate to me. And so I'm building and building her tree. And then my mom's results come in. And my mom does not match mystery cousin. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. How do I have a match on my mom's side that matches him, but my mom doesn't match him? So I was like, somehow he's got to be on my dad's side. How weird. Like, I don't get it. And so then I went back to the email from my cousin Adam and I'm looking. And the only match in common that we have on each other's lists with mystery cousin is each other. So Adam's list has me and a whole bunch of people that I don't relate to, but they do relate to this mystery cousin. My list has Adam and a whole bunch of people he's not related to, but mystery cousin is related to them. So, in some weird twist of fate, we figured out that this mystery cousin, his biological mother, is on Adam's father's side, and his biological father was on my father's side. And Adam and I relate to each other on our mother's side. So it makes a big circle. So it's really weird. But even though I figured that out, I still hadn't figured out yet that my dad wasn't my dad. Because I didn't know exactly who his father and his mother were yet. I just figured out that must be how the relationship is, you know? Like, we must have, just by accident, me and Adam happen to be related, and each one of us has his parent on one of our other sides. So as I'm figuring this out, I'm still building on to this fake tree that I made based on this second match that I had. And I found a second cousin match that I had in common with her. So it was someone I'm related to, and she is too. And it was from her great grandmother's sister. And I was like, okay. So fine. And then I found another second cousin match that was related to her and me from her great grandfather's sister. And so this is a married couple. I can't share DNA with second cousin A and second cousin B unless I share DNA with both of this married couple. Like logical reasoning, you know? And so I looked underneath them and they had 4 sons. And all 4 of their sons were within one, the youngest one was within 7 years of my mom's age. And then he had 3 older brothers. And so I knew that like it couldn't be a further down relationship. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, which one of these 4 men is my dad? And she was like, what do you mean? And I explained the whole second cousin circle. Like, listen, I can't be related to person A and person B unless I share DNA with both of these people here in the middle, you know?
Yeah.
And she paused for a minute and this all took a long time. Like, this was it was May. So I had got my results in February and this was May. So I had been working on putting all these pieces together, you know, having my mom test and different things, talking to my cousin Adam and doing all of this stuff for 3 months, trying to figure this out. And she paused and I could hear her, you know, breathing get weird and she started crying a little bit and she was like, I didn't know. And I was like, what do you mean you didn't know? How do you not know? And she's like, I didn't know. She said, I was like, well, how did it happen then? Um, she explained to me she was with my dad, the one I grew up with. They broke up for a tiny, short little time. She went to one party and was with Tom, my bio dad, one time. And she immediately got back together with my dad. So she didn't even know she was pregnant yet. She says she assumed that I was my dad's. I don't, you never can 100% know what people's true intentions are. But I mean, enough of me believes her because I put I put myself in the shoes of if I'm 22 years old and I am someone who drinks and parties and smokes pot and I go have a really quick one night stand with someone and then come back to my long-term boyfriend, would I necessarily be counting and keeping track of when my cycle is? And like, they didn't have the same birth control then and different things like that. Maybe she didn't know. I don't know. But then the other part of me says, if she did know, if I was 22 years old and I was in that position, what would I do anyway? I mean, people, I don't want to make excuses, but people are scared. People are, she probably thought like maybe I don't know, but if I tell someone, this could mess up everything. I don't know what she was thinking. And I probably won't ever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've asked her, but if like I really feel like she didn't know because I didn't have a great relationship with my dad growing up and my stepmom. And for when my mom was around, like we were close and she told me things that like she acted more like a friend than a parent. So I just kind of feel like she would have said something at some point. Even if she wouldn't have when I was under 18 because she needed child support, I don't know what her reasoning was. I feel like she would have told me when I was an adult.
Mm-hmm.
If it had honestly dawned on her that it was a thing. And then when I had asked her about, well, which one of these four guys is it? My hunch said it's probably the youngest guy because he was 7 years older than my mom. His next brother was 10 years older than him. So that would have made that guy 17 years older than my mom. And then the other two brothers were older than that. So it's not
Right.
like that can't happen, but it was more likely to be the one that was closer to her age.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to lead her in case her memory didn't quite remember. So I just told her all four names and I did it in a super random order too. I didn't even do it in birth order because I was like, I really want her to come up with which one is the right one out of her head without me leading her in case she didn't remember. And she did have to think about it for several minutes but she told me, she's like, it's Tom. I was like, you're sure? And she goes, yeah. And I asked her, how did this happen? And she said, well, there was just a party one time in Waseca. And I was like, okay. And she just told me the thing like that she didn't know. And she's like, I bet you think I'm a horrible person. What they all do, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They make it about themselves for a minute. And she says, I bet you think I'm a horrible person. I didn't know. And she's like, what will people think of me? And I said, who cares? And and she's like, what do you mean? And she's crying and like like, part of me wants to feel bad for her, but at the same time, I'm not someone who dwells on things. So I was just ready to figure out who this person was and like move forward.
Mhm.
So I just said, who cares? I said, I don't know. You said you didn't know. I'm going to choose to believe that you didn't know. And so I was like, I'm not upset with you. I just want to know who this is and figure this out. No one is going to give a crap what you did when you were 22 years old. This is not 1955 anymore. You don't have to worry about having a besmirched reputation or anything like that. And I just was like, no one's going to care. You haven't been with my dad since I was 5 years old, so it's not upsetting anyone's relationship.
Mhm.
So I just kind of was like, stop being ridiculous and I'm going to move forward with this. And she said, she goes, now wait a minute. And I was like, what do you mean, wait a minute? She goes, don't you want to think about things before you blow up your whole life? And I was just like, I feel like my whole life has already been blown up. Like, how much worse can it get from this,
Mhm.
And I had already been crying off and on. And, some rational people might say, like, oh, you should wait and you should think about it for a few days before you contact anyone. My thought process was, um, I want to rip off the band-aid. I already feel awful right now. Like, I feel like my whole life has changed. I feel like there's someone out there that I should have known that I never got to know yet. If I'm already upset right now, like, why do I want to be upset, get over that, and then maybe have to be upset again? I don't know how they're going to react when I get a hold of these people.
Mhm.
So my thought process was, I'm already, feeling out of control with my emotions right now. Why not just rip off the band-aid and call these people and see what happens? That way, if I have to deal with all these emotions, I can get it all over with in one fell swoop. Just to get everything squared away and to confirm things. I figured this out, but at the same time that I had ordered my mom a test, I had ordered another test for my dad as well, because I figured even if I didn't have my dad take it, maybe I would need someone else to take it, or I would just give it to someone for a gift. And so, just to get everything squared away to make sure I really was on the right track with everything I was seeing, which I don't see how I wouldn't be, but I wanted to ask my dad to test. And but I used the guise of that I was still trying to help this mystery cousin, and I wanted to have my matches sort better, and if your parents test, your matches can sort better. And I already knew what the results were going to be, um, because I had already figured this out. But so I had him test. He agreed to it, and he said, "Well, let me know how it comes out," because I really do think that, even though no one told me for sure, I really do think that there has always been a question
Mhm.
of my paternity. I just didn't feel it. Like, I didn't see it. I didn't think that it was real. I feel like that could have had a lot to do with why my stepmom treated me the way she did.
Mhm.
But I always grew up getting told, oh, it's okay, you don't look like your dad. You just look so much like your mom. And it wasn't like this crazy stark difference. Like, I have dark hair and blue eyes. My dad has dark hair and green eyes. My mom has dark hair and blue eyes. I mean, I wasn't like this kid that stood out where where I was blonde and, or had olive skin or anything crazy like that. I mean, I just didn't have features of my dad per se.
Mhm.
But they just explained it away. Oh, you look enough like your mom, that's why. So that's what it was. Um, so meanwhile, while all this was happening, my grandma was not doing well. This is my dad's mom. And so I had to go every Saturday and sit with her because my dad, she couldn't be alone anymore because of her health issues. Like she was basically on her way out. And so every Saturday I had to go sit with my grandma and stay with her because my dad was with her all week because he's an only child. So that was the other thing that stood out right away when I had a first cousin match that I didn't know who they were. My dad's an only child. I don't have any first cousins on his side,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm taking care of my grandma and, spending lots of time with her because she wasn't doing well. And this is in May of this year still. And, her and I would talk as much as we could, and we'd go through old photos, and she'd tell me who they were because she knew that I was very interested in all this family history. And when I found this out, the last few weeks that I spent with her were very hard because I kind of felt like a fraud,
Mhm.
because in her heart she was my grandma, and in my heart she was my grandma. And I don't think anything would have changed, but uh, we decided not to tell her because it was just enough for her anyway with what she was going through already. Um, so after my dad had tested, before his results had even come in, is during the time when I pieced all this together. So at this point, once I knew who my dad was, from what my mom told me, I looked at the DNA matches again, and it all fit together. I mean, it all fit perfectly. The girl whose tree I was using to build a fake tree, she ended up being the daughter of my first cousin. So she was a first cousin once removed. Um, Once I started putting things together even more, mystery cousin turned out to be the son of my biological dad's brother that he never knew he had. So not only would my bio dad be getting a surprise of me, but his brother would be getting the surprise of a son.
Now, was this Adam?
No, Adam was my cousin on my mom's side.
Yes. Okay.
This guy is just mystery adopted cousin who we were trying to help. And so uh, this mystery cousin, we'll call him Luke. Um, his uh, his biological mother turned out to be on my cousin Adam's side, but his biological father was on my father's side.
Oh, wow. Confusing.
Yeah, but we found who they both were. We found who his parents were for him as well.
You figured this out without a DNA angel or anything? You guys just, from looking at CMs and matches, you guys figured out.
Yes. I've since become a search angel myself
I
because
can tell.
I'm really good at this.
Yes. Wow. You are smart.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So I'm taking care of my grandma, and I figured all this out. My dad's DNA test had been sent off, but the results had not come in yet. This is my dad I grew up with. I didn't need the results to come in because once I pieced all this together, I knew what was what. So then in my head, I felt like I'm not a person that can keep secrets. I'm not a person that can lie to people. And if I want to pursue this to try to figure out to find my bio dad and talk to him and try to see what he wants to do or if he wants to know me, then I need to tell everyone, you know?
Mhm.
That was my thought because I didn't want to have this just knot in my stomach and just be keeping this from everyone and trying to live these two lives and meet these people and then have everything not be able to be open on one side or the other because of the other side can't know, you know? That didn't seem fair to me. or to them or to anyone involved. So I decided, regardless of how it goes, I have to tell my dad. So he was coming to take over for me one night for being with my grandma. And I told him, and this was before his DNA results came in because I didn't need them to. I knew what they were going to say. And I said, listen, so I got the results, and you know, I couldn't even like say the whole words because I was crying. Even though we weren't close, like it's still kind of emotional, and
Yeah.
so I just said, he's like, yeah, and what did it say? And I was like, you're not. I just said you're not. Like I couldn't say the whole thing. I just said you're not, and I was shaking my head and crying, and he didn't really have that much of a reaction. I mean, he was just kind of like, oh, and he said, he's like, well, nothing changes, like they want to say to you.
Yeah.
But that didn't turn out to be true later on. So he told me nothing changes, and I was like, well, how do we handle this? Do you want me to tell Susie, which is, his wife, and do you want me, I have to tell my brother and my sister that I grew up with, and he's like, we shouldn't tell them yet because, like, they're very irrational, and his wife's not very kind, and he didn't know how they were going to take it anyway. And so I was like, okay. I said, what about grandma? And he said, he's like, I don't think we should. And he said, I don't think anything would change for her. So we're not going to tell her. She doesn't need another thing to worry about. And, I agree. So, so we chose not to tell my grandma. In the meantime, during one of our visits, she had given me her wedding ring. And she said, here, I want you to have this. And, that was really special to me. She only had 3 grandkids. So it was me, my brother, and my sister. And I was the oldest, and I was always like the one she was closest with. So I was like, okay. So I told my dad right away. I said, Grandma gave me her wedding ring, just so because I thought, like, when something happens to her, we were all kind of planning for that. Like, she was on her way out. When something happens to her, like, I knew they would need it. And he said, that's fine. He goes, just put it in a safe place, and we'll get it when we need it and whatever. I said, okay, good. And then so about a week or so, uh, or maybe it was just a few days before my grandma passed. I was down at her house, and my dad was there, my stepmom, and my sister. And I'm sitting outside, taking a break from being inside with her. My dad's inside, and I'm outside with my sister and my stepmom. And my stepmom says, well, we need that ring back. I said, I know. Dad told me to put it in a safe spot. I did things in backwards order, but so I had went and finally had a conversation with my stepmom and my sister and told them what was going on, and that dad wasn't my dad. And they said the same thing. He said, like, they were very nice about it, and they were like, oh, nothing changes. And I'm like, okay. And so then fast forward to, this was about a week later when we were sitting outside my grandma's house. And she said, we're going to need that ring back. I said, okay. And she goes, no, you're going to need to bring that ring back because I am the daughter-in-law and that belongs to me.
Oh.
And like, I didn't even know what to say, but I didn't want her to see me get upset. So, I just said,
Diane, that's a terrible thing to say to you. I'm so sorry.
so I just looked at her and I said, okay. And she goes, okay. And I said, yeah, okay. If you're that person, I'm not that person. So, okay. You know, that's a thing. That's not a person. And I'm not about to let you get to me or fight you over something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously something changed for her. She said nothing changes, but who acts like that?
Yes. Wow.
So, yeah. So then, so this was June by now, mid June. And, uh, well, actually, I'm sorry. I'm so out of order with this. It's so bad. I'm like, wait, I have to go backwards. So, okay, so the day that I had talked with my mom and she told me who my dad was, um, I looked online and found him on Facebook, but I know people on Facebook don't get messages. Like, it's not very common or often that they do. So I'm like, I'm not going to go that route because I couldn't stand the thought of sending a message into the great unknown and just waiting to see if someone gets it,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I found him on Facebook. I saw his wife. I saw his other daughters. I found all of them, and so I knew who they were. A little light creeping as people do, and and I was like, okay, all right, I got to call him. I got to figure out how I can find his phone number. So, there's whitepages.com.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you go on there and you search, and usually the people's phone numbers are blurred out, and it says if you pay such and such amount, you can see it. And it was like $5.99 a month, and you can cancel at any time. And I'm like, I think this is worth $6. I'm just gonna do this. This feels worth $6 to me. So so I got myself a subscription to see his number. Well, then it showed me the number, and it wasn't a good number. Like, it wasn't his number, and I'm like, oh shoot, now what? And so then I was like, one of the sisters. I'll try one of the sisters. I wanted to get a hold of someone right away that night. So I had known because I had put them together in Ancestry, so I knew who was what and where and when. So he had had one daughter before me from his first marriage. They had gotten divorced, and then he had a small gap of being single, in which I happened. And then he got remarried or got married to another lady, and then they had 3 more daughters. So 5 daughters, including me.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, the daughter from his first marriage, she might feel more likely to be sympathetic to me because she doesn't have the same mom as the other girls, so maybe I'll reach out to her. So I did. So I sent her a text and I'm like, hey, is this Amy? And she's like, yeah, who's this? And I was like, can we have a phone call? And she's like, yeah, but who is this? I was like, no, I really think we should have a phone call. Because I wasn't about to explain over text message, hey, so I'm your long lost sister. So she's like, okay, fine, and so I called her and I told her everything, and she's like, she seemed very skeptical. Like, she's a very more of a hard-nosed person. So she seemed a little skeptical, but I was like crying. I was like, I promise this is true. My mom told me, and the DNA and this. And I'm sure I sounded, super crazy. Um, but then, so she's like, okay, do you care if I call my other sister and talk to her about it? And I was like, no, I don't care. I would have agreed to anything because I was kind of feeling desperate. So I was like, yes, of course, do what you need to do. And so she called her other sister, my sister Becky, and um, she's like, Becky wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. So then I'm sitting here thinking, am I going to have to be gatekeeper and go through all 4 of these sisters before I get to my dad? And so I talked to Becky, and it was so weird. It was instantaneous, like we'd known each other forever. It was so easy to talk. She's like, you sound like my other sister. I was like, I do? What? And we talked for like 45 minutes. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to talk to Amy and we're going to talk to my mom and dad. And I was like, okay, great. And she goes, you might not hear back from us till tomorrow. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And so I was just sitting there going, oh, it's going to be such a long night, because it'd be nerve wracking to wait to hear till tomorrow. But one detail I had given her over the phone that my mom gave me is she said, I said, what do you remember about him? Like anything you can tell me, asking my mom, what do you remember about Tom? And she said, I remember that when we were together, he had just gotten hair plugs. And I was like, what? Because he must have only been like 29. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, I remember. I said, you're sure, right? And she's like, yeah, I'm sure. I remember that because he had to tell me because he had to be careful with his hair plugs. And I was like, that is so weird. And so I told my sisters that when I talked to them on the phone. I was like, my mom remembers they met at a party. They were together one time. She remembers he had hair plugs. And they're both thinking I'm super weird. They're like, no, what? He never had hair plugs. And I'm like, okay. Well, that was one detail that really solidified it for my dad when they called him, because they called him and they're like, yeah, she said you had hair plugs. Isn't that weird? And both him and Kathy, my stepmom, were like, well, yeah, he did. They're like, what?
Oh my god.
Yeah. And so I didn't have to wait a day. They sent me a text message after that and they said, hey, he wants to talk to you. I was like, right now? Is it too late? It was like 9 o'clock at night. And they're like, no, it's not too late. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I called him and I talked to him and his wife on speakerphone. And they were like, it was so awesome. I mean, they were just so normal and warm and welcoming. And I was like, is this real life? Is this really what this is going to be like? He's so intelligent and funny and just like me. Like I was like, I'm like you. You're like me. What's going on?
Oh.
Yeah, it was just such a good phone call. I was like, I can't believe so much of your personality comes from your DNA, but I really feel like it does. And his wife was so nice. Like she's been great. She's been super warm and super sweet, and the stepmom I wish I could have always had.
Oh.
Yeah, and they told me, they said, this is something we prepared for. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said that when they got married, he was very forthcoming with her. And he said, that he had had a very wild time in between his first marriage and her. And that it was not impossible, that there couldn't be some random kids running around somewhere. And uh, what would they do about that? How would they want to handle that? You know? So like they had already spoken about this in their marriage and they pretty much already had a plan as to how they would handle
Mm.
things if an
That's
unexpected surprise came.
that's actually really mature.
I I know. It's so cool. And I mean, like, so this is an example of how we're like. So my dad I grew up with, he if you text message him, you will be extremely lucky if you get a response because he doesn't really understand how that works that well.
Mhm.
And he's only, I don't know what he is. He was born in like 59, so he's only like in his 50s, I think. And like, so he's not like ancient or anything, but he really just doesn't get it. He doesn't play with technology or use his phone that often. So I'm like, okay, fine. But my bio dad is, older than him by at least 5 years. And like, the next day after we talked, he's sending me text messages with like gifts and like with entire complete conversations. And I'm just like, wait, what?
Wow. What a what a change. Here you're finally getting this great communication.
Yeah, it was just crazy weird. Crazy weird. And then, so my grandma passed away after I had made contact with them about the beginning of May. My grandma passed away mid-June, and um by then, that whole family knew, everyone knew. I hadn't come out on Facebook yet, so I let my bio family know, like, hey, we'll talk and get to know each other, but I don't want to put anything on Facebook yet. And they were fine with that. But so my grandma passed away, and I was in this really awkward position of just feeling so weird. Like everyone said, oh, nothing will change, but it just didn't feel like that. You know, they posted my grandma's obituary. And so my first thought is, when you're writing an obituary and you're listing children or grandchildren, typically you're going to go in birth order from oldest to youngest, right? Like
Yeah.
that's like the traditional format.
Hmm.
They did the opposite because I'm the oldest. So they made sure to put us at the end.
Oh.
So, and I feel like that was super intentional on my stepmom's part,
Uh-huh.
because they wouldn't even let me have a part in planning anything for her. And I was super close with my grandma. And I think everyone just resented that, especially when they found out what they found out. And, my grandma's sisters would come up to me and, want to give me hugs and stuff at the funeral and, just be super comforting. And they kind of weren't that way as much with my sister, because my sister was not close with my grandma.
Hmm.
And so she got really jealous over that. And there was just a lot of hurt feelings. And I'm standing over my grandma's casket at her funeral, and my stepmom is standing right next to me. And we're looking down at her, and we're just talking about, how they made her look pretty good, the kind of
Yeah.
small talk you have at funerals. And my stepmom says, yeah, and they shined that ring up real nice so they can give it back to me and I can give it to my granddaughter.
Oh my gosh.
Like, she made it a point to say that to me over my grandma's casket at the funeral. And I was like, oh,
Unbelievable.
okay. Meanwhile, my bio dad and my stepmom, who live in Florida, by the way, they just retired to Florida about a year ago. So it was slightly too late to meet them right away.
Hmm.
They sent me a peace lily the day my grandma died, and a really nice note, and just like to let me know that I was supported from, 1,500 miles away.
Hmm.
So that was really sweet. And so all three of my four sisters live within an hour of me. So I've met three of them. The other one lives in Illinois. I haven't met her yet. And then I haven't got to meet my dad and my stepmom yet because they're in Florida. But we actually have plans, if COVID doesn't disrupt everything. We have plans to fly down there and see them over Christmas break.
Mm.
So, yeah, but he lived in a town 20 minutes away from me my whole life
Oh.
until last year when they retired.
Oh, Diane. Oh, so close.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. And then so meanwhile, I have finally come out on Facebook. Um, my At first, so they had my bio, or my family I grew up with had said that nothing would change. And for me, what that means is I would only see them on holidays anyway, because they live 2 miles away from me and we literally never see them.
Mm.
They never ask to see my kids. Like, that's the way it always has been. So that was just par for the course. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. That means I won't hardly talk to them at all anyway. And, but then my stepmom unfriended me on Facebook. And my sister stopped talking to me, which she was the only one I talked to consistently. I never talked to my dad and my stepmom very often, but I talked to my sister pretty much weekly, or at least twice a week, because we all live in the same town, And my sister wasn't talking to me. My stepmom unfriended me on Facebook, which told me where she stood, you know. And then
Yeah.
my husband saw her at Walmart, and he was with our youngest, our 7-year-old. And our 7-year-old didn't see her, but he saw her, and she saw him. And she like walked right by them like she didn't even know them.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So, um, since then, I have talked to my half sister that I grew up with, which technically by blood is not related to me at all now,
Yeah.
which was very
Yeah.
hard for her and for me. Um, but we have figured out a dynamic where we talk like nothing ever happened.
Okay.
So we know that we probably won't have holidays together anymore, but I feel like we can probably, hopefully, still maintain the friendship and the closeness we
Mm-hmm.
had. But the most difficult part about that is I can't talk to her about my bio family because I feel like it's a sore subject. Like, I don't want to hurt her feelings. So we just still talk about day to day stuff, and I don't really share a lot about them. But they've been awesome. I mean, my one sister, the one that I clicked with right away, we talk multiple times a week for several hours at a time. We both have 7-year-old daughters, and they have had overnights together and spent lots of time together, and they call each other sister cousins because they said, we're not just cousins, we're sisters. And I was like, oh, my heart.
Sweet.
Yeah. And, COVID makes it hard because we've had to be really careful
Yeah.
and not too much with the contact, but she only lives an hour away. So we've been trying to make it work when we can, when it's safe. Then, I finally came out on Facebook, and I just said, my way of putting it was because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I was like, so I found out that, my dad and I don't share DNA, only love, because I love him regardless of,
Mm-hmm.
we were never close, but I love him. To me, he's still my dad,
Yeah.
but I call my bio dad as well, and he feels like a dad. That's a piece that I feel like I was missing.
Wow. When did you start calling your bio dad?
Um, I want to say maybe a month after we'd been talking because it just felt natural.
Oh, that's amazing. That's sweet.
I mean, I even call my stepmom mom usually. And
Wow.
so I'm 37, and my other stepmom has been my stepmom since I was 7. So for 30 years. And I never once have even felt the desire to call her mom.
No.
And my mom always told me it was fine if I wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
but I never wanted to.
No, she doesn't act at all loving towards you. She's very exclusive.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It
it's.
it was very much all about her daughter.
Mm,
Like they did Christmas morning stuff without us where they would buy all kinds of extra things for the other two and not us. And, it's not all about things, but it's about like being excluded.
yeah.
That's just, I don't know. It just is. It just is what it is. And if that's the type of people they are, honestly, it was almost a hardship to be a part of their family sometimes. I
Yeah.
My personality always was so different from theirs.
Mhm.
Um I sometimes had to do a lot of, I call it OOKing, And what I mean by that is when someone says something that you either know is completely not true, like it's out of character for someone you know, or it just doesn't make sense. Like, it's a bald-faced lie, but you don't want to have a confrontation with them about it. My way of dealing with that is, oh, okay. And then we just move on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of like, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. So I just choose to say, oh, okay. And then we move on. And I had a lot of moments like that growing up with my stepmom and my sister. So,
Yeah. Okay. I totally get it. Oh, I feel like I've had to do that a couple times in my life with people.
mm-hmm.
A good tactic.
Yeah. So it's just, it's a lengthy story and it's a little all over the place. But there, were lots of things that happened, and I solved my story that I didn't even know I had while I was trying to solve someone else's.
I'm so glad we got to record all of it. It would have been abbreviated had we used Zoom instead. So I'm glad we were able to record your whole story today.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing I have to ask you about was, first of all, you're crazy smart to be able to figure all that out with all your second cousins and mystery cousins.
Yeah.
Did you say that you have acted now as a DNA angel, a search angel?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've helped a few other people discover who
Aww.
their biological parents are, because I'm really good at this stuff and I really love doing it. Like, it's if I could figure out how to get extremely well paid at that and not have to be an accountant also, I would totally do that. Maybe it's my retirement job. I don't know, but for now it's a fun hobby on the side, and I totally like helping people.
This is good for me to know. I might be contacting you privately on my own.
Okay.
I have a couple questions, of people that I'm working with on the side, but I just can't see it. Like I know some of you in the groups talk about, oh, well, if you have this CMs and this match,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look at this table. It's a hard one for me. But if people want to get in touch with you, because you're using an alias, I will just say that they can go ahead and reach out to me, npestories@gmail.com. I will make sure and pass along any questions or comments to Diane. Also, I can be reached through Instagram at lilymwood. Lily is spelled Lily, M as in Marie.
Everybody's story is different, and I know that a lot of people really have a hard time forgiving their mothers. Like, how could they do this? How could they do this to me? But sometimes it almost helps to, like, put yourself in their shoes. What would you have done? There were different times, there were different circumstances, and people were scared, and we didn't have the readily access to, like, be able to get a DNA test and just get it for, like, the low price of this, in such a short amount of time. So, I mean, sometimes they need a little grace.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Just a reminder, I do have a crossover episode with Steve Urgis of Everything's Relative being released next week on November 30th, 2020. And she will also be releasing an episode with me as well. And thanks again to Diane for sharing today. These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE that would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.